In Manchester in 1813, a man called Mr. Goodyear, a local mill owner, was walking along the riverbank when he noticed something glistening. He walked over to take a closer look and could barely believe his eyes. But when he realised what it was he was looking at, he ran for the police. Lavinia Robinson was the daughter of a simple wire worker, but was luckily enough able to be educated at the Moravian boarding school at Fairfield, which is in an area called Tameside in Manchester. And because she went to this school, she left in every respect superior to other girls of her station. Lavinia wouldn't have an easy life, however. At the age of 12, she lost her mother, and 4 years later, at the age of 16, her father also passed away, leaving her with 6 sisters and 3 brothers, who all continued to live in their modest home on Bridge Street. And this is where Lavinia started and ran a small school for local children and her siblings. Over the years it grew and became a considerable success. In the same street, a little further down, lived a young doctor who noticed Lavinia and decided to court her, and later that year they got engaged, with the wedding set for January 1814. The December of 1813 was the coldest in living memory, and the country was being buried beneath heavy snowfalls and hard frosts in an unbroken spell that ran for nearly 13 weeks. It was so cold, rivers froze, including the Irwell, which was a main river running through Manchester. This is an important point to remember. On the morning of December the 17th, Lavinia's sister rose and started waking the house, getting people out of bed and opening the curtains. This is when she discovered Lavinia's bed had not been slept in, meaning she had not returned after going out on the previous evening. Lavinia's brothers and sisters ran around the local area, knocking on doors and asking strangers in the street if they had seen their beloved sister, but this was all in vain. It was later discovered that the young teacher, without knowing, had excited the interest of another man. When he brought this to her attention with proposals, she kept refusing him, but when her younger admirer heard of her approaching wedding, he became desperate, forced himself upon her in the street, making a final plea, trying to win her over, causing a scene in front of a growing crowd. She publicly turned him down, however, once more stating that she only loved her surgeon. But the news that reached her soon-to-be husband was very different, and when Lavinia called at his house to see him, an argument erupted. The surgeon accused his future wife of having a lover. Lavinia pleaded her innocence, but he would not listen, and stormed out of the house with Lavinia chasing after him, sobbing, knowing that her future happiness and her security was now in jeopardy. She followed her fiancé all the way down the road to the bridge, and was just outside the New Bailey. The New Bailey was an overcrowded prison, an absolute miserable place that was built upon Manchester's first jail, and a place of hard labour and execution. It was that here on the bridge, a witness said, the couple stopped and the argument reached new heights, with sharp words being exchanged, and Lavinia was struck and fell. Although another witness said she was trying to cling on to the surgeon in an embrace, but he pushed her away and she fell, and rising to her feet again threw her arms round his neck, begging him to believe her truthful words. But it was too late. The surgeon was convinced of her guilt, and later in a police statement he said he left her there on the bridge and went home, thinking she would be able to make her own way back. But that night Lavinia vanished. A note was found on a parlour table by Lavinia's sister, where she solemnly declares her innocence and her determination not to live under the wrongful suspicion of her fiancé. A month later, an advertisement was placed offering 30 guineas, which in today's money is £31.50, for her recovery alive or dead. This was later increased by the town's authorities to 100 guineas, which would be £105 today. The advertisement read, quote, "She was of middle size and good figure, of a fair complexion with long light brown hair. She had on a fawn-coloured twilled stuff dress and pink and yellow shot-figured silk handkerchief on her neck, brown cloth mantle and a black beaver cottage bonnet, and her linen is marked LR." End quote. As days passed, and still there was no trace of Lavinia, a large number of men made their way to the river. Some were paid by the local authorities, others were just volunteering, willingly set off to work breaking up the ice that covered the river, but nothing was recovered. On February the 7th, a month after what should have been her wedding, and 2 months since her disappearance, 3 miles outside of Manchester, Mr. Goodyear saw the body of the young Lavinia, quote, reclining on a sandbank, surrounded by masses of ice, with icicles gemming her hair in places of orange blossoms, end quote. She seemed like she was a princess from a fairy tale. No signs of decay. She was perfectly preserved due to the frozen temperatures of the water. Word was sent to Manchester, and the police, along with some of Lavinia's siblings, quickly arrived at the spot. They identified the Ice Maiden as Lavinia and took her back by hearse to her home on Bridge Street. As she arrived, the public feeling in Manchester ran very high, and people felt the surgeon would be held accountable. However, after a long deliberation, the jury found there was no evidence or anything to incriminate a gentleman from such a noble profession, and that the cruel suspicion that had been placed on him had been unfounded. The fiancé is said to have spoke with bitterness of sorrow, having thus wrongfully accused his unhappy sweetheart. However, he might have been seen innocent in the eyes of the coroner and the jury, but the people of Manchester had other ideas. After hearing the verdict, they marched on his house, breaking his windows and forced him to flee the town, throwing stones at him as he left. Lavinia was buried the day after, on February the 8th, 1814, and so widespread was the feeling of injustice and tragedy surrounding the young teacher, thousands of people attended her funeral. The people of Manchester also helped to pay for the family's heavy expenses that they had incurred in connection to the loss of Lavinia, as well as the funeral. Lavinia was buried with her father and her mother in St. John's Churchyard on Lower Byrom Street. Her gravestone reads, "Also Lavinia, their daughter, who departed this life the 17th of December 1813, aged 20 years. More lasting than the lines of art, thy spotless character impressed, thy worth engraved on every heart, thy loss bewailed in every breast." Rumour has it that the image of a lady has been seen standing on the bridge in December, but when you look again she vanishes. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Well friends, that'll be it for today. If you like that and tales like this, don't forget to like and subscribe. I aim to do new true stories of Manchester's past once a week. See you then.